Hey y'all, I have a story for you today, and this is one of my very favorite books of all time. Now, if you know me really well, you know I say that a lot, but this is really one of my favorite books. It's so good and so funny. It's called Miss Alaineus, a Vocabulary Disaster. I think you'll love it. I've never even heard of a vocabulary disaster except for this book, but it's a disaster. I love the inside cover. It's got some letters in there. I don't know. I think maybe you should pause the video and see if you can name these letters. Okay. Now, one thing that I really love about this book is the illustrations. They're done on notebook paper with just notebook paper and markers. So they're really creative. And the borders are all I'll have to see on the next. I just want y'all to see that picture real good. The border has some words on it, and it's got the alphabet. Okay, so I'm gonna let y'all look at this picture real quick, and then I'm gonna turn around and read it so you can really hear the words good. Okay, none of this would have happened if it wasn't for Forest. Forest is not a thicket of trees. Forest is a boy, a sick boy, a boy sneezing and coughing all over my desk and pencils. I caught Forest cold and had to stay home from school on Tuesday. Tuesday is vocabulary day at Webster School. Follow my advice. Never get sick on vocabulary day. All right, so there's Forrest sneezing all over our main character. Her name is Paige. We don't know that yet, but I'll tell you. On Tuesday afternoon, I called my best friend Star, who is not a luminous celestial object seen as a point of light in the sky, but a very smart girl who listens perfectly on vocabulary day. She was late for basketball practice, so baseball practice. So she spelled the first 14 vocabulary words as fast as she could. I had to scribble them quickly because her mom was calling her to the car. The last one's miscellaneous, Star yelled. I gotta go. I hope you feel better tomorrow, Sage. And she hung up the phone with a crash. I mean, Sage, I said the wrong name. All right, so there's Sage and Star talking on the phone. Okay. I don't know if you've heard the word miscellaneous before, but like if you have a junk drawer at your home or something, it has miscellaneous items in it. Like it just has a whole bunch of stuff in it that's not really related to each other. So that's what the word miscellaneous means. Okay, like I might have miscellaneous stuff in my junk drawer back there or in my basket right here on my table, miscellaneous school supplies or something like that. But when Sage writes it down, I don't know if you can see this or not, but she writes down Miss Alaineus. And she doesn't actually write down the word miscellaneous. She writes down Miss Alaineus. Can you see how this could be a vocabulary disaster? So here's her vocabulary words that she wrote down. I didn't feel much better on Wednesday, so my mom called Mrs. Page, who is not a single side of printed paper usually found in a book. She's my teacher, and actually Mrs. Page is a good name for her because she reads to us every day. My mom told her, yes, I had math problems and vocabulary words, and yes, I would get better soon. Every week, Mrs. Page gives us a list of words with a theme like story writing or musical performance or electricity. We're supposed to look each word up in the dictionary, but sometimes I already know the words, so I try to make the definitions sound like I looked them up. By the way, this book, it kind of takes place before we had the ability to send out videos, right? Because now her teacher would probably send her a video, don't you think? Or something on Schoology. So here's her definitions. Tree, a large leafy plant with a tall wooden trunk that pushes roots into the ground and branches into the sky. automobile, a vehicle used to transport humans, usually consisting of 4 wheels, a steering wheel, and a radio. By the way, we do make up our own definitions at school, but so we don't use the dictionary at our school, but she was supposed to, and she was just making them up. I thought I was pretty good at definitions until this week. My mom says pride goeth before a fall. Pride, an unduly high opinion of oneself. Goeth, Old English for to go. Fall, what happened on Monday, vocabulary test day. You think she's going to get that word wrong? Okay. I think I can show you this picture while I read this side. By Thursday afternoon, my head felt like it was stuffed with cotton, and my throat felt swollen shut. I finished defining my vocabulary words while propped up in bed with a box of tissues on one side and a gigantic red dictionary on the other. It's hard to look at words in a huge book while you're in bed blowing your nose, so I made my own dictionary language for as many of them as I could. 13. Hypothesis. What you guess will happen in your science experiment? That's right. Category. A bunch of things that are alike. Miss Alaineus. That last word seemed a little odd to me because I couldn't figure out what she had to do with snakes or categories or theories. Mrs. Page rarely gives us people's names on our vocabulary list, but we have had a few that turned into words like Louis Pasteur for pasteurization and George Washington for Washington, D.C. So I decided she must have been included for a reason. Now, she was included. She was related to categories because miscellaneous is kind of the opposite of categories, right? All right, here's another good picture I can show you while I'm reading. You should know that for years I had wondered who Miss Alaineus was. When I was little, I figured out she had something to do with the kitchen because the Miss Alaineus drawer held the spoons too big to fit anywhere else, the sharp corn holders shaped like tiny cobs, and the spaghetti spork, that weird cross between a spoon and a fork that perfectly lifts slippery spaghetti out of the bowl. I thought maybe she was an ancestor, an ancient relative long dead who left us all these odd things in the drawer. Then just last year, my mom and I were at the grocery store and it all fell into place. We were in one of those very big hurries when she said, "You go get some of that long Italian bread and 2 sticks of butter. I'll get miscellaneous things and meet you here at the cash register." I found the bread and butter. My mom came back with spaghetti sauce, a can of Parmesan cheese, a can of corn, and a big green box of spaghetti with a beautiful woman on the front. She was drawn so that her hair tumbled perfectly across the box and ended in the little plastic window, making the spaghetti look like these strands of her hair. There she was, Miss Alaineus. Okay, now, we know where this is headed, right? Vocabulary disaster. So, propped up on my pillows in my bed with a tissue in one hand and a pencil in the other, I wrote, Miss Alaineus, the woman on green spaghetti boxes whose hair is the color of uncooked pasta and turns into spaghetti at the ends. And then I fell asleep. And look, she even drew a picture. I finally got better over the weekend and felt great on Monday. I turned in my homework to Mrs. Page and sat down at my desk, glad to be back at school with my friends. I was even glad to see Forrest at our morning circle meeting. First, I want to remind you of the 10th annual vocabulary parade on Friday, said Mrs. Page. I hope you are all working on your word costumes. Second, please remember to bring your bus money and permission slips for our science museum field trip tomorrow. And third, instead of our usual Monday test, we are going to have a vocabulary bee today. Now, you know, like the spelling bee, everybody gets in a line, everybody gets a word. Well, this is a vocabulary bee. Everyone line up here by the chalkboard, and I'll choose a word from our list. After I pronounce the word, please spell and define it. If you are correct, go to the end of the line. If you miss the word, please sit down at your desk and look it up in the dictionary. Write the word 5 times and define it once. Star was the first with the museum. Do you have a guess as to what word sage is going to get? Museum, a building for exhibiting objects about art or history or science, she said, and went to the back of the line. Cliff, not a high, steep face of a rock, but one very tall boy, answered to the word dinosaur. Dinosaur, a prehistoric extinct reptile, often huge, and he went to the back of the line. I was 10th, and when Mrs. Page called out my word, I spelled capital M-I-S-S, capital A-L-A-I-N-E-U-S, and added, the woman on green spaghetti boxes whose hair is the color of uncooked pasta and turns into spaghetti at the ends. Now, if you were in Sage's class, what would you do? I'm sorry. I wouldn't be able to help it. I would probably laugh at her or with her. Actually, she didn't know she was wrong, so I probably would laugh because that definition is completely wrong, right? Then I would have to apologize. There was a moment of silence in the room. I smiled at Mrs. Page. She waited to see if I would add anything else. And when I didn't, she grinned. Not smiled, grinned. To draw back the lips and bare the teeth, as in a very wide smile. And the class burst into one huge, giggling, laughing, falling down mass of kids. Forrest was doubled over. Star, my best friend, was laughing so hard, tears came to her eyes. By now, even Mrs. Page was laughing. Pride goeth before a fall. I was Sage, one who shows wisdom, experience, judgment. Why were they laughing? Wise girl with words, my dad always called me. What had I said? I was beginning to turn red, the color of embarrassment. I guess Cooper came to laugh at her too. He likes to get his head petted. He's just dying for attention here. Okay, here's a good picture. Finally, the room quieted. Mrs. Page opened her dictionary and wrote on the chalkboard, Miss Alaineus, consisting of various kinds of qualities, a collection of unrelated objects. My jaw dropped as I looked at the spelling. My eyes bulged as I read the definition. I didn't bother to tell anyone about my mom and the spaghetti spork in the grocery store. Humbled, aware of my shortcomings, modest, meek, I dragged back to my seat and wrote miscellaneous 5 times and defined it once. And that's when I remembered I had even drawn a picture of the spaghetti box for extra credit. I was devastated, wasted, ravaged, ruined, destroyed, finished, brought to an end. All right, Cooper, can you sit in my lap? They called me Miss Alaineus for the rest of the day. Sometimes a person couldn't even get the words out before bending over with laughter. The day took a week to end. When I got off the bus, I slumped home, devastated, ruined, finished. I told my mom the whole story. From the kitchen drawer to the grocery store to the vocabulary bee. Even my own mother laughed a little at the part about the drawing for extra credit. But at least she stopped fast and said, you know what I always say? There's gold in every mistake. Gold? A bright yellow precious metal of great value? Mistake? Something done, said, or thought in the wrong way? Impossible, I told her. Impossible. Not capable of happening. I couldn't believe I ever had to go back to school. But the next day we went to the Science Museum. And everyone forgot all about Miss Alaineus at the snake exhibit in the dinosaur bone lab. Then the guide said, "The field of bone archaeology has been influenced by a wide and unusual array of miscellaneous discoveries around the world." The class burst out laughing, and the guide was pleased with herself for entertaining us so easily. And I knew, to apprehend with certainty, that my mistake was still alive and well, and nothing like gold. Looks like Sage has a cat too. Maybe that's why Cooper came in. After school, I lay on my bed and stared at the wall. How could I have been so stupid? My mom came in and said it was time to work on my costume for the vocabulary parade. We had finished the cape for capable, but I still needed to make the lettering down the back. "Mom," I said, "I could only be a mistake this year. Mistake. Suddenly I sat up. I looked at my mom. She looked at me. I smiled. She smiled. "Sweetheart," she said, "let's take another look at that cape." It took the most courage I've ever had to walk on the stage as Miss Alaineus, queen of all miscellaneous things. But when Mr. Bell read my word and definition, everyone applauded and laughed wildly, in a manner lacking all restraint, and I grinned at my mom across the auditorium. Forrest came right after me. When he bowed, his precipitation watering can hat rained on Mr. Bell's new suit, and the entire audience gasped, then cheered, when Mr. Bell smiled at his soggy clothes. To my astonishment, great shock and amazement, I won a gold trophy for the most original use of a word in the 10th annual vocabulary parade. So this time my mom was right. There was gold in this mistake. We should get a good look at these costumes. And next year, I think I'm going to be Mysterious, investigator of all things mysterious. And then here's Sage's Vocabulary Parade scrapbook. Kindergarten, she was boat. First grade, she was ice cream. Second grade, she was punctuation. And then in third grade, she was tension. Fourth grade, magnetism. And then here's her miscellaneous costume. All right, you'll have to let me know what you thought about that book.